Hi everyone, it's Evangeline here at etrailer, and today we have the Saris MHS 3-bike kit. This is going to consist of the 3 duo trays paired to our 3+1 base system. An awesome way to carry around your extra heavy electric bikes, but still within the modularity of the MHS. There are different accessories available for your MHS Base and different bike racks too. This is going to be the heavy duty kit. These duo trays have a greater weight capacity as well as tire width capacity compared to the Uno trays. So if you're planning on carrying extra heavy bikes or bikes of different shapes and sizes, this will give you that versatility. Now, you do have to note that the maximum weight capacity is going to be 195 pounds. So 2 heavy bikes, 80 pounds max, but the 3rd bike can only go up to a 35-pound weight capacity. This also keeps space to add on a 4th bike. So this kit is going to be great for those larger families, as well as if you have a lot of friends and you want to carry all of their bikes. With that in mind though, because it does take up more space and has more weight, this is going to work best on larger SUVs as well as trucks. Having a bit more height up off the hitch and having a greater tongue weight capacity will help out a lot. Yes, we are shooting this on a smaller SUV, but that's because I reviewed the different kits and configuration of the MHS line, and they're all on the same car, so that you can see that size difference. I call this extra heavy duty because I've noticed that this has more touch points holding the bike in compared to other dual wheel mount racks. You not only have your front and rear wheel mounts, you also have the rear wheel strap and the front wheel chock. All of this works together to make this probably one of the more sturdy dual wheel mount racks on the market. But before we get into the features of the rack, let's go take this for a ride. During the alternating speed bump, that simulates hitting a pothole or hitting a curb, and you can see that while the rack moves, the bikes don't really move on the rack. And it's the same for our regular up and down speed bumps, showing that up and down movement. That's where having the proper tongue weight rating on your hitch is very important. There's a lot of weight bouncing there. We also have our quick turns and our U-turns, and everything is very solid here. Even when we do our quick stop, yes, there's a little bit of movement of the bikes, but just as much as the car is moving. So all in all, even for dual wheel mount rack, this is very sturdy and probably the least amount of movement I've seen yet. So what is it like carrying around 3 bikes with your heavy duty rack? So we're going through the motions, we've loaded the bikes on, we went for a drive, now we're parked. Maybe you all want a bite to eat or need to grab something before your bike ride. And if you need to access your hatch, this rack does tilt away, but that experience may be different depending on the weight of your bikes as well as your hitch receiver. Ideally, you'll do this with your friends. There's this lever here that you're going to pull, but because our current hitch receiver is pretty low to the ground, this does utilize the stopper to hit the ground, meaning our tilt does not go all the way. So for those smaller cars and SUVs, you might experience something like this, where if you have long handlebars, your door will go most of the way, but will make contact with the handlebars. You'll still be able to grab whatever you need from this position, but compared to other things, maybe not as much. Now, when you do need to lift this back up, you're lifting the weight of your bikes as well as the weight of the rack. So I do recommend lifting with your legs and not your back. Get it into position, it snaps into place, and now you can drive. And if you need to park for a bit, well, you can secure your bikes with these integrated cable locks. Each tray will have its own lock, and the base includes locks so that everything can be keyed alike. Now you pull these out of the tray, and you can easily secure your frame, and with a little bit of effort, secure most front tires and frames. So the lock fits in to a larger lock, turn the key, take the key out, and now your bike is secure. I'm always a big fan of integrated cable locks just because it makes it so much easier to actually lock up your bikes. But please remember that before you start driving, to undo those locks and to store them back into the trays. That way you don't have extra friction and movement against your bikes as you're driving. Most of the effort of the rack comes into maneuvering the rack. As for maneuvering the bikes, that's actually pretty simple and pretty easy. So since we have that extra strap, that's where we're gonna start when we take the bike off. You go over to the rear wheel, you press this lever, and then you remove the strap. Technically, there's a keeper for the strap in the back, but I like to just tuck it behind the other tray. Now for removing the wheel mounts, there's actually a special trick to it. Now, usually when you come up to the levers and you try to pull it, you'll have a lot of resistance there. So much that you'll overcompensate and potentially pinch your fingers in between that lever. The trick to this is I do recommend going up to the mast, pushing that mast against the wheel, and then you pull that lever. You'll find it's much easier to pull since you're taking away a lot of that tension, and then you can keep that lever depressed as you drop that whole wheel mount down. We did have 3 mountain bikes here, but this can also carry bikes of different shapes and sizes. And depending on your frame, doesn't really matter because there's 0 frame contact. This holds on to the bike by the front and the rear wheels, so no need for adapter bars for your carbon fiber frame bike that you want to protect the finish or step through bikes. Another thing is that this can carry large bikes too, with a wheelbase capacity of up to 53 inches for those long wheelbases and maximum tire width of up to 5 inches for those fat tire bikes. With the ability to carry around more bikes with this rack, you also have to be mindful that this does take up more space. So I like to do is I like to measure from the center of the hitch pin hole because that's something you can measure on your own vehicle. And then we're gonna go out to the end of the rack by this handle, and that's gonna be 50.5 inches. That measurement is important because that'll help you figure out if you have space inside your garage or if you need back into a tight parking spot. This is also important because when you go up inclines like driveways or hills, your front will go up, your back will go down. Also, you have to remember that with this being further out, you do need more distance in order to tilt. So that measurement there is going to be ground clearance. So again, this will be different depending on the height of your hitch, but here's an example. From our tray to the ground, it's 15 inches. From the handle to the ground, it's 9 inches. And when we go over to our shank, which is the inside corner of our hitch receiver to the ground, I have it at 9 inches. There is a shank rise to give you a little bit more ground clearance, but it's gonna be pretty much the height of your hitch. My recommendation is for the best experience, have at the very least a 10-inch hitch height, and then you'll be able to experience that full tilt. The rack fits into a 2-inch hitch receiver, and what secures the rack to the hitch receiver is this anti-rattle bolt. Now the bolt can be locked, and that lock is going to be the same as your trays if you install the same lock course, and then you tighten that down with a 5/8 inch wrench. What I do is I keep a spare socket wrench in the car, and that's going to make it a lot easier to install that bolt. And when you're not carrying your bikes, you don't have to have all this length added to the back of your vehicle. You can store this rack in the portable position. So pull that lever, but instead of letting it drop down, this time we're going to push up, and we have 2 options. We have this angled compact position, or we have the straight up and down position. I personally recommend going for the angled position. You'll have better chances of opening up your hatch, and if you do have the add-on, that's going to be helpful for you, but it is up to you. And if you're curious about add-ons, well, I brought this out for you just to show you the different options and accessories for the MHS series. We have the 3+1 base. What I have here is the 2+1 base. What the +1 refers to is the add-on that can be attached right there near the handle. And Other examples of accessories is we have the Uno bike rack right here, along with the cargo basket. So if you wanted to, you could switch out your duo trays for other accessories like the Uno or the cargo basket, or you can add on to carry up to 4 bikes with your 3+1 system. Now those are all different accessories and you can find them here at eTrailer if you're curious about them, but having this base allows you to get the most add-ons. In the midst of all those different parts and mixing and matching different accessories, if you just need to know what kit you need to start out with, well, it does depend on what type of adventure you're going on. If you're planning on just getting a solid 3-bike platform rack and you can eventually upgrade it up to a 4-bike rack, well, this 3+1 kit is going to be a great option for you, especially for versatility and if you're going to be carrying around heavy electric bikes. Now, the downside to this kit is it is going to be very heavy, very hefty, and very large. Standing beside the two options, you can instantly see one is significantly larger than the other. This actually weighs almost 75 pounds. On the other hand, if you are only carrying up to 3 bikes, no plans to carry a 4th, I would recommend going with a 2+1 base instead. And with that 2+1, you can still carry around a basket as well as a bike rack add-on. To change those trays out, you do utilize these collars, and for modularity, it does take a little bit of time and effort, especially since you have to use a special security Torx wrench. Once that's loose, you can then remove the tray from your base. This allows you to switch things around relatively quickly, and if you need to change the orientation of your trays, maybe you want your front wheel facing the driver's side instead of the passenger side, you just switch the whole thing around just like that. Now, figuring out what works best for you with the different trays may take a little bit of time, but you really should only be doing it once. My initial reaction to the 3-bike kit in the MHS series is that it felt very over-engineered, hefty, and I did not want to be the person to have to install it into the vehicle. But the concept is that if you are planning on getting something that is very sturdy and you want to carry around multiple bikes, hopefully you'll also have your friends there to help you with maneuvering the bike rack. And because of how easy it is to adjust that base up and down, fold it up, tilt it away, then you should be able to leave it on your car no problem. Another thing too is that while these trays can be pretty hefty and tricky to install compared to other modular systems, the concept is that you really should only be doing this once. The only other time you should be messing around with these collars and with that modularity is when you switch out the accessories for your different adventures. So comparing this with other modular systems, while this does take up more time, it really is one of the few options for carrying around more than 2 bikes. To be able to carry around 4 bikes and still have that modularity option is great. So really, you would be comparing this more to other 3 or 4 bike platform racks. Something that I would compare it to is maybe the Kuat Piston series. That one is going to be a 2+2 option. It's also a dual wheel mount rack. It also has that sturdiness and stability, but it doesn't have that modularity. If I wanted to switch this with lighter trays when I'm not planning on carrying heavy electric bikes, that's an option that I don't have with those other platform racks. So there's pros and cons to every single type of bike rack and every single type of product. Hopefully, we're able to explore those different options, and then that way you can find the best fit for you. Again, this is available in the individual components or as a full kit. What you saw here was 3 of the duo trays along with the Saris MHS 3+1 base, all combined to make the 3-bike MHS kit. You saw it at etrailer.com. My name is Evangeline, and I hope you enjoyed this journey.